Good afternoon, all of you. In today's class, we'll discuss about transformation into bacteria and yeast. Though we have discussed about transformation methods in bacteria, while discussing about the overall procedure of producing recombinant DNA molecule, once again, let's discuss in detail how the transformation is done in case of bacteria and yeast. In addition, we will also discuss about the gene transfer methods, the other gene transfer methods in prokaryotic cells as well as eukaryotic cells. As you all know, what is transformation? It is the process by which external or exogenous DNA is introduced into a cell. Because of the introduction of exogenous DNA into the cell, there will be change in the genetic makeup of the organism or the cell. This transformation was first reported in the organism Streptococcus pneumoniae by the scientist Griffith. You all must be aware of the experiments where the transformation is proved by the Griffith experiments. Now, coming to the bacterial transformation, this bacterial transformation, it allows a bacterium to take up the genes from its surrounding environment or the external environment, as I mentioned earlier. So this process, it involves the direct uptake of the DNA fragments by the recipient cell, and there will be the acquisition of new genetic characteristics by the cell. There are two important elements required for this transformation mechanism. The first element is the suitable host bacterium into which the DNA has to be taken up, and the second element is the plasmid. Plasmid is the molecule in which your gene of interest or the sequence of interest is inserted, and that is the DNA to be taken inside the host organism. So what is the prerequisite for this bacteria to undergo transformation is the ability of this organism to take up free extracellular genetic material. That means the bacteria should be in a condition to take up the external DNA inside the cell. Once this DNA enters the cytoplasm, it may get degraded by the activity of nuclease enzyme, or if it is, the degradation takes place if the DNA that enters inside the cell, if it is different from the bacterial DNA. If suppose the exogenous genetic material is similar to bacterial DNA, in that case what can happen? It may get integrated into the chromosome. So there are two possibilities when the DNA gets inside the cell. One is it may get degraded by the nuclease enzyme if it is dissimilar. If it is dissimilar to the bacterial DNA, there is some message coming saying that my internet is unstable. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll carry on. So if the DNA that enters inside the bacterial cell, if it is dissimilar, it gets degraded by the nuclease enzyme, or if it is similar to the bacterial DNA, in that case it gets integrated into the chromosome. Sometimes the exogenous material which enters inside the cell, that may coexist as a plasmid with the chromosomal DNA. So these are the possibilities. So this is the bacterial cell that has to be transformed. This is the external DNA. When the uptake of DNA by the competent bacteria, what is this competent bacteria? We will be discussing more in detail. Competent bacteria is the one which is ready to take up the external DNA. So when it is competent, it allows the entry of the external DNA inside the cell. So when it enters inside the cell, the DNA, as I discussed now, it may get integrated into the host DNA, or it may coexist as a extracellular. It's not extracellular. It may coexist as a extra chromosomal DNA, which is nothing but your plasmid. So this is how the external DNA will remain inside the cell after the transformation process. So now let's see what are these competent cells. Just now I mentioned competent cells are the ones which are able to take up the external DNA. So there are two major parameters which are involved in transforming bacterial organism. The first is the method which we use to induce the competence for transformation, and second one is the major parameter which is the genetic constitution of the host organism which is being transformed. So the bacteria should contain some molecular characteristics so that it becomes susceptible for transformation. When it is susceptible for transformation, we call it as competent cell. So these competent cells are the ready to use bacterial cells. That means they possess the altered cell walls. That means the permeable cell walls by which the foreign DNA can be taken up from the external environment. So these competent cells are capable of uptaking DNA from their environment, and then once they are able to take up the DNA from external environment, they would be able to express the DNA also as the functional proteins. If we say one bacterium is competent, that means it has to maintain a physiological state in which it can take up the donor DNA. If a cell is said to be competent, it means that it is capable of taking up the DNA from its external environment. So the competence that results from the alterations of the cell wall, which makes it permeable to larger DNA molecules. There are two important methods which are used for the preparation of competent cells. One is calcium chloride method, the other one is electroporation. I hope these methods are not new for you. We have discussed earlier also, but now we have a separate topic given in the unit 2 where we need to discuss these methods little bit more in detail. As I mentioned earlier, many topics in this recombinant DNA technology are overlapping. Again and again, same concepts will be repeating, but depending upon the concept they stress upon, we need to present the information differently. So now let's discuss about the methods which are used for making or preparing the competent cells. One is calcium chloride method, the other one is electroporation. We are discussing about bacterial transformation methods. So here the normal bacterium which is to be transformed, as we discussed, the first method is calcium chloride method. In this method, the cells are treated with calcium chloride. When the cells are treated with calcium chloride, the cell walls become permeable for the entry of the external DNA. So you have the plasmid here in the external environment. So when you treat the bacteria cells with calcium chloride, the cell wall becomes like this, porous, wherein your external DNA comes and binds to it, and then in the later stage, heat shock treatment will be given to the cells. The heat shock at 42 degrees centigrade for about 2 minutes, when you treat the cells with heat shock, the DNA will be pushed inside the cell. So when the DNA is pushed inside the cell, we call that cell as transformed cell. How it is transformed? Because the genetic makeup of the cell is changed because of this process. So the plasmid is transported into the cell. So the cell becomes transformed cell. So here this schematic representation shows the two methods of transformation in bacteria. One is the chemical transformation, the one we discussed now. The cell becomes chemically competent cell. How it is chemically competent cell? As the way I have shown you in the previous slide, when it is treated with chemical like calcium chloride, the cell wall becomes like permeable for the entry of the external DNA. So when you allow such cells for incubation along with the recombinant DNA molecule, here the recombinant DNA molecule is a plasmid in which your DNA of interest is inserted, and then subsequently when the cells are subjected to heat shock at 42 degrees centigrade for about 30 seconds, what will happen? Because of the permeability in the cell membrane, the DNA from the external environment will be pushed inside the cell. So the cell becomes transform. This is chemical transformation. The other method, electroporation, in the upcoming slides we will discuss more in detail about electroporation, but here schematically it is shown how the transformation takes place with electroporation. So here the cell which is to be transformed, when you allow it with the external DNA for incubation, what will happen when you apply electric shock of about 15 kV voltage, what will happen? The membrane becomes permeable for the uptake of the external DNA. So when you withdraw the electric shock or electric voltage applied, what will happen? The cell membrane porosity or the permeability of the cell membrane will be automatically repaired by the natural cellular repair mechanism. So these are the two major methods which are used for transformation in case of bacteria. So let's look at the details. As I explained to you, calcium chloride treatment, what is done? It is one of the best methods for the preparation of competent cells. In this calcium chloride method, what happens? The competency is obtained by creating pores in the bacterial cell walls by suspending these cells in a solution containing high concentration of calcium. Then the DNA will be forced inside the host cell by the heat shock treatment at 42 degrees centigrade in the process of transformation. Looking at the procedure of transformation, first the cells needs to be prepared, then they are mixed with DNA. Here cells need to be prepared in the sense they have to be made competent. That means it could be chemical treatment or the electroporation method. You have to make the cells ready for take up of the external DNA. So here it is mentioned like the prepared cells are mixed with the DNA. Generally the DNA will be allowed to be transformed after the ligation step during the process of recombinant DNA molecule production. So the bacteria then are given a heat shock. This heat shock causes some of the cells to take up the plasmid. Need not be all the cells will take up the DNA. Actually, the transformation efficiency is very, very low. It's a very inefficient process. So, few of the bacteria will take up the DNA during this process. The plasmids which are used in this cloning, generally they contain a selectable, they possess a selectable marker. Usually it could be antibiotic resistance gene. So that way all the bacteria after this transformation reaction, all the bacteria will be placed on antibiotic plate to select the transformed cells, and you have to go for further procedures to pick up the cell containing the right plasmid. I hope you understand when I say right plasmid. The cells containing the religated plasmid, the cells containing recombinant plasmid, both will grow on the antibiotic plate because the antibiotic resistance marker will be present on the plasmid, original plasmid, also of course on recombinant plasmid also, but we are interested in recombinant plasmid. So we have to choose the right method of selection in order to specifically select the cells containing recombinant plasmid. So here the bacteria without a plasmid, that means non-transformed cells will die because they may not exhibit resistance to the antibiotic which is there on the plate. But each bacteria with a plasmid, that gives rise to cluster of identical plasmid containing bacteria. This cluster of identical cells are called colony. You all know what is a colony. And several colonies are checked. That means they need to be analyzed to identify the colony with right plasmid. Just now I mentioned right plasmid in the sense the plasmid containing your gene of interest. For that we can apply the methods, either it is PCR or restriction digest. Depending upon the size of the molecule, we can say that whether it is recombinant plasmid or just the religated plasmid without the insertion of your gene of interest. So a colony containing the right plasmid is grown in the bulk. After selecting the colony containing the right plasmid, that will be allowed to grow in the bulk, and which will be used further for plasmid or protein production. So here pictorially the process is represented. As I told you, the DNA from the ligation reaction will be mixed in the bacteria. The bacteria should have been made competent. Then heat shock is given. When the heat shock treatment is given, because the cells are ready to take up the external DNA, the plasmid will be taken inside the bacterial cell. That means the bacteria is transformed. After the bacteria is transformed, we plate these cells on a medium containing the antibiotic. Since these plasmids carry the gene for the antibiotic resistance, the cells containing plasmid will grow on the antibiotic plate. But further, we need to select the right colony containing further we need to select the colony containing the right plasmid in the sense the plasmid containing your gene of interest, and that will be grown in the larger quantities, which can be further used for plasmid analysis or for the production of the protein. So I was mentioning the transformation is a very, very inefficient process. How this transformation efficiency can be defined? This transformation efficiency can be defined as the number of transformants generated per microgram of supercoiled plasmid DNA, which is used in the transformation reaction. So this transformation efficiency can be calculated using this formula. By taking the number of transformants, that means the colonies grown on the antibiotic plate, into the final volume at the recovery in ml by the microgram of plasmid DNA used for the reaction into the volume that is plated on the plate. So with this formula, we can calculate the transformation efficiency. So this is about transformation. And what are the other methods used for transformation? We have discussed about calcium chloride method and electroporation also we need to discuss a little bit more in detail. The spectrum of these cellular functions that requires suitable high efficiency transformation system. There are number of methods, gene transfer techniques are available for transforming eukaryotic as well as prokaryotic cells. One such other method is electroporation. This electroporation is the method that facilitates the cells to take up the DNA molecules by reversibly altering the permeability of cell membrane. What do I mean by saying this reversibly altering? When you apply the electromagnetic field, there will be formation of the pores in the cell wall. When you withdraw the electric field, it gets closed. That's why it's called by reversibly altering the permeability of the cell membrane. And this is the standard technique for efficient transformation. This is used for transferring the foreign DNA into the fragile cells. Here, the brief pulses of high voltage electricity is applied to protoplast suspension that contain naked or recombinant plasmids. Here, the electric pulse what we apply that induces the formation of large pores in the cell membrane, and these pores give passage for the DNA from the external environment. The high permeability and the subsequent formation of electropores, the pores created by the application of this electric field are called electropores, because of which this technique is called electroporation, that facilitates the exogenous molecules to permeate through the cell membrane. After this electric shock is withdrawn, the holes are closed by the cell membrane repair mechanism. So this is the apparatus of electroporator, which contains a glass or plastic cuvette in which the cell suspension can be pipetted, and it is attached to the electrodes, and they are in contact with the electrical contacts, and that is connected to power supply. So this is where the cells are placed in suspension form in the cuvette. So when the electromagnetic field is applied, there is permeability created in the cell membrane, through which the DNA from external environment can enter inside the cells. In the laboratory, this electroporation is done with the appliance that creates an electromagnetic field in the cell solution, which is known as electroporator. As I told you, the apparatus used for this electroporation is called electroporator, in which the cell suspension is pipetted in the glass or plastic cuvette. It has got two aluminum electrodes on its sides, as I have shown in the diagram. Then the electric field strength of 300 to 800 volts per centimeter is given to the suspension. So what are the factors that will influence this electroporation process? There are cellular factors, there are physicochemical factors, and also electrical parameters. If you look at the cellular factors, it could be the growth phase of the cells, cell density, diameter of the cells, and rigidity of the cell wall, and also the susceptibility to the electroporation. These are all the cellular factors that will affect the efficiency of electroporation process. If you look at the physicochemical factors, it could be temperature, pH, osmolarity, ionic concentration of the electroporation buffer, DNA concentration, DNA concentration, post electroporation incubation conditions. These are all the physicochemical factors that affect the process of electroporation. If you look at the electrical parameters, it includes optimum field strength, that means electric field strength, voltage, pulse length, number of repetitive pulses, electrode geometry, which provides uniform or non-uniform fields. These are all the electric parameters of electroporation that play role. Okay, let's look at the applications of this electroporation. Obviously, it is used for transformation. It could be the prokaryotic cell or eukaryotic cell. That means this electroporation can be used for transformation and also the transfection. It is used in many areas of molecular biology research and also in the medical field. It includes, as I told you, for the DNA transformation and transfection, which means that into prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells, and it is also used for direct transfer of plasmids between the cells, induced cell fusion, and also can be used for transdermal drug delivery, cancer tumor electrochemotherapy, and also for gene therapy. So these are all the different applications where we can use this electroporation. Other applications include research, medical, farming, and manufacturing processes. It can be used for vaccine development and also used for B-cell cloning in case of monoclonal antibody production in mammalian cells. Also can be used for producing bacterial libraries. These are all the various applications of electroporation. If you look at the advantages of this electroporation process, this is a very efficient transformation method, and it obtains very large number of transformed cells. It means the same. Efficiency is more, means more cells are transformed, and it may not require the skilled personnel. And there are also some disadvantages for this electroporation. It could cause cell damage if the electric pulses are of wrong length or intensity. In that case, some pores may become too large. In that case, what can happen? They may fail to close after you withdraw the electric field. That would cause either cell damage or cell death or rupture. So that is one disadvantage of this electroporation technique. And it could also cause non-specific transport, which means that the transport of material into and out of the cell during the time of this electroporation is relatively non-specific. This may cause an imbalance, ion imbalance, which would change the, that would change the cell function and cell death. So the transport could be non-specific during this process, which would be another disadvantage of this electroporation. So what did we discuss in today's class? The transformation methods in bacteria, two important methods, calcium chloride method, which is a chemical method. And then we also discussed about electroporation method. Electroporation method, its apparatus, what are the factors that influence electroporation, and applications, advantages and disadvantages. So this is all I wanted to discuss in today's class. The remaining gene transfer methods I will discuss in the next class. If you have any questions in this topic so far, whatever we have discussed, you can ask me. Are there any questions?